Okay, welcome to the 42nd edition, I believe, of the Data Value Show. Today we're going to talk about the future of customer analytics, and I can't think of anyone better to come on to talk about that than Alexander Dean. I think I referred to him as the Dean of Data, I think, in my post. Welcome, Alex. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to be here.
So I always like to do an intro of like where I first met the guest or how I first met. And there's always an interesting time it's always an interesting way of meeting or catching up with Alex wherever I seem to bump into him. But I think I gate crashed his party at the Vegas Summit last year accidentally twice. While trying to make my way to the real event I was going to. And then we realised who each other was. And then I went, you're Alex Dean. Oh, you're Chris Tabb. And we sat down and we put the data world to right for a little bit. But yeah, and since then we've caught up on quite a few occasions. They've always been insightful. So thank you for coming on. For the audience, to give yourself a bit of a better intro than my one, at least.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think that was quite funny because I've been following you on LinkedIn for ages. It was good to put a face to the name and put the world to rights. So I'm Alex Dean. I'm one of the two co-founders of Snowplow, also the CEO. And I think the question is, what is Snowplow, and why am I here on Chris's show to talk about kind of customer analytics and where that's headed in the kind of wider data space. So Snowplow's been around quite a time. Like myself and Yali, we started it as an open source project back in 2012. And what we've been doing is, stayed true to the mission ever since. We call ourselves a customer data infrastructure, one that's optimized for AI and advanced analytics use cases. And what we do is we help brands with a big digital footprint, a lot of websites, mobile apps, connected TV, video games, whatever. We help those brands to observe very rich customer behavioral signal of their digital estate. So we have a bunch of tracking SDKs. We track that data. It used to be called clickstream data. Now we call it customer behavioral event data. We track it through. We process it in Snowplow, which is a real-time pipeline. It works on top of event streams. We enrich it. We validate it, and then we land it in your data platform of choice. And we run that inside your own public cloud account as well. So it's very, very kind of very high data sovereignty and ownership. And once we land that super rich data into your Snowflake or your Databricks or your BigQuery or your Redshift or your Synapse or whatever, then we do modeling on that data, because that kind of customer behavioral signal is very, very granular. It's very powerful, but it's very atomic. And so we model that up to data that's more useful for analysts and data scientists. That's Snowplow in a nutshell, Chris.
Yeah, well, I've learned a little bit now as well. I mean, I've worked at some supermarkets where we did clickstream analysis back then, but I think it's moved on since then, and hence we're here talking about the future of customer analytics. Something you two things as you spoke there. I think competitive advantage, that sort of like jumped out to me, of the more we can understand our customers, the more we can get their trust in a digital way, because unfortunately there's not enough of us to go around to build up trust individually. The better shopping experience, the more likely you're going to have that competitive advantage on any of your competition. So do you think now, is that a race now from organizations to try and get the most state-of-the-art one to have that stickiness and that loyalty of their customers?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think it is a bit of a data arms race, and it's a digital data arms race as well. Even for major grocers, major omnichannel retailers, there's a big arms race, because so much of the shopping behavior's moved online since COVID. So the digital storefront kind of is the storefront now for an awful lot of brands. And to your point, everyone's talking about AI, but with AI, it's the data stupid, right? It's if you have the best proprietary signal of what your customers are doing, you can build a much faster learning loop and power, train much cooler models.
So I've talked about this in the past on some of my, I think with Joe I did one. I referred to platform gravity. In that example, I was more referencing, we've had data gravity, brought the data to the same location. Now we're bringing containers and applications to where that data is as well. Microsoft Fabric are doing it, Snowflake's doing it with its offering, and now we're bringing the algorithms to those applications to where that data is. And I won't bang on about HTAP sort of technologies as well, but in the ability to have hybrid transactional analytical processing, may be the next game changer. But that's not for today's show. But I think why I brought that up, and it's relevant, is we're now, I think, that decision firewall, I call it. I like your term data arms race, but I think it's that decision firewall. We've talked about data quality firewalls. You bring it is the closer up you can make any decisioning, and it be accurate and real time. You're gonna get a better understanding of your customer, where you're dropping off. You have a better ability to do A/B testing on any new releases to say, okay, well, when am I losing my customers? The stuff I was doing with Matt when we're talking about business value, and there's an understanding not only from your customer's experience, but also to understand how you could optimize that from either a cost saving or an additional conversion. And without that data, you'll never be able to evidence any benefits that you've made. So I think that's another. I'd say that would be another thing that really would be one of the futures in there is evidenceable improvements that you can go back to your CDO or your CTO or your CEO, go, look, I've saved you that money. Can you invest in my next brainwave I've got that's going to increase customer retention, for example?
Yeah, I completely agree, Chris, with everything you said. I think I used to do a sort of a presentation for chief data officers over in the UK, where I talk a lot about like the sort of the data gravity well, and how there's a lot of unbundling of these third-party kind of packaged SaaS apps, and a lot of the data is kind of coming in. But you're right, it's a platform gravity, because that data is landing, or it's being like processed inside a specific platform, and Snowflake and Databricks are going great guns building their data platforms, and the underlying hyperscalers are active as well. And yeah, I think you're right, and what you've called out a couple of times is almost that like decision to action loop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another interesting convergence, which is I think historically it's almost like the operational estate and the analytical estate were quite separate, and now I think they're getting much closer together with real-time processing, data lakes, all that stuff. That just helps you make the decision loop.
I started to write some notes. I thought you just said what I was going to say anyway. But yeah, it was these two roles. I've talked about it before as operational and analytics. It used to be like a very thin thread between the two of them. They've come closer together. There is an overlap there, but there's still never that clear understanding. If I change this here, what's effect it have on that? Or we have too many ops in the world: DevOps, data ops, FinOps, SecOps. It should just become ops at some stage. What you're doing is you're releasing some code in an operational business change process. Old school again, but it's joined up. It's a single release that covers both of them. I think that has to happen now. I mean, for what you're just saying there, you're making decisions using data, real-time click data, but also historical data that you've collected about that customer to understand what profile or customer lifecycle value, their buying trends and things like that. That is now, if you don't have both those things together, lined up, working collectively, you're either going to give discounts to people that weren't meant to have them, or you won't give discounts to people. I heard a story of a online clothing company that wanted to prevent all these people just buying everything, returning everything, and never doing it. So they put in some sort of, I call it, they probably call it an algorithm, a business rule, should we say? Right? And if 100% of the items ever purchased are returned, cancel that customer. They're send them a note saying, you've failed. You're not one of our targeted customers. But if that's the customer's first time they've ever used the system, and they've got to return those things for a legitimate, there's a fair chance, and especially the ticket size, if it's a large amount, they're probably going to buy again, and next time they probably will keep something. But you don't kick that into afterwards. So I suppose understanding a true customer life cycle value from as part of your shopping cart experience, it could have catastrophic offences if you get it wrong.
Yeah, 100%, Chris. And I was lucky enough to go to the Snowflake and Databricks summits in Moscone a few weeks ago. It was good to see you there. And and they had Jensen Huang talking at both the keynotes, and I found that really interesting because obviously Huang talked about GPUs, he talked about the partnerships, he talked about models, but he kept coming back to this idea of like a data flywheel, and talking really articulately about how he was doing that at NVIDIA, and this idea that you collect back to the data arms race, but also to the platform, that you collect this very rich signal from across your business, including your customer behavior, and then you feed that into decisioning, and then you observe, then you make actions, and you kind of go again, and you're creating tons of data doing that, but you're creating tons of insights, and you're moving through. He doesn't use the word like OODA loop, but it's kind of those loops of observation, orientation, decisioning, acting, and you just get through it and improve the business. And that goes through analytical, but also operational. And I think that's why you have that platform gravity growing, because you need a platform on which to do all this.
Yeah. So do you think we're in danger of getting to the uni vendor? It's we're going to that single platform that is from one provider and moving away from best of breed?
That is a great question. That's a spicy question, Chris. So
it is. Should we save that one for when we're out with Lauren for drinks, or we get her view then as well, maybe?
I think that I'm happy to answer it. So I think look, there's always bundling, there's always unbundling, right? And I think in the MarTech space that we're also a part of at Snowplow, there's definitely still a lot of unbundling going on. There's the rise of composability, composable ad tech, composable MarTech, composable analytics. So that I think is a trend of a lot of unbundling, and that's powered by these data platforms. On the platforms themselves, are we going to everyone goes all in on one platform? I think there's a lot of friction reduction from doing that. The countervailing, I think that on the flip side, you've got the rise of Iceberg and Delta and Hudi and these kind of open data lake formats, and I think that will allow people to plug and play more technologies on top. So I don't know. I think maybe in the short term, maybe for smaller businesses, all in on one platform makes a ton of sense. Maybe longer term, a lot of enterprises, it'll be more composable or headless, I've heard it called recently.
Yeah, it's not a bad term. I think I referred to it is it best of greed or best of breed? And I'm not going to call that, but I'll give you an example of history anyway. Oracle. If you went all in Oracle, you haven't really gone in Oracle because you've gone for a bit of Siebel, you've gone a bit of Essbase, you've gone for a bit of JD Edwards, probably absorbed into it as well. You've got it was never a unified platform that's been defined. It was a collection of components from acquisitions that sort of been stitched together but never really tested. And seeing I picked on Oracle, I can move on to someone. I mean, Microsoft are doing a very similar thing at the moment. So they've gone all in and selling that dream up top. But we all saw what happened when you need to go from ADSL1 to ADSL2. I think I joked around moving to Fabric. Will they release a product called Fabric Softener called Lenore or something, which is it's an English brand of a fabric softener. To ease the migration. They probably won't, but from experience, it's never normally plain sailing when you're doing that. So I think that perception and reality, I think would anyone out there making some of those decisions, I would always go with caution. I think Matthew Mullins, composite data systems wins. I think something I've banged on about is before naming your capability after the vendor, really just understand what it's doing. It may be the same vendor's doing more than one of those capabilities, but actually understand, this is my framework for ingest, this is my framework for security, this is my framework for orchestration. They may all sit on the same product, but you could move them out easier and be much easier to communicate. We're swapping this technology for this framework. Oh, okay, I understand that. JT's just come up with he's using data wool versus fabric, sometimes polyester. But he's a funny one, isn't he? Dad jokes, Jason. Dad jokes. But
no, keep them coming. No, I agree, and I think the platform thing is interesting. I think that these metadata catalogs, it feels like that's maybe going to be the pinch point. Maybe that's going to be the point of centralization. If you can go all in on one metadata catalog. Maybe you can use that for governance. Maybe that also leads into semantic layer, whatever. But I think there's going to have to be one unified plane somewhere in the organization. Otherwise, it's just massive Tower of Babel problem. But it's not obvious what that will be.
No, it's interesting you brought up that the metadata. I mean, a little while ago, I came up and did some posts around. It's all about the metadata now. It's about the data, and it is. That is that level. It's that level of abstraction now, because unfortunately, all siloed metadata is useless. You need to actually understand how they've all linked, how it's all linked up. You need to have run ID, query IDs, whatever the IDs, batch IDs, stream ID, whatever it is that's going to be able to hook up all of those touch points. It's basically click data for your pipelines, basically, of understanding every single touch point as it goes through.
Completely, Chris. And we've always had to do that. Snowplow. So a lot of the art of Snowplow over the years has been building enough metadata into it so that you can reason about what this event data is and where it's come from and how it's been processed and what are the schemas attached to the data. And I think as everyone gets more into these Gen AI and classical data science use cases, that metadata is just where it's at. Without that, the LLMs are just super dumb.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the next level of oil on our data is the metadata. Something you mentioned. Linking back to streaming data and making decisions further on, and also this metadata scenario as well. Data modeling is now cool again. Before it was exactly. So over raising the profile of that, and there's scenarios now that that modeling now needs to happen even further up the chain. Now, if we want to take advantages of being able to join up any streaming data with any reference or master data that's coming in, but also maybe in pointed time data that's coming in that is related to the location you're at, maybe even what version of iPhone you're using, or if you're using a Mac or a PC. Well, on Friday, if you're using a PC, you probably won't have much luck anyway. But
it's your day off on Friday if you're using
that's a whole other topic about anyway. So do you see there being some disciplines or some changes into how either the clickstream data or your operational data is modeled, Shopify data or hooks in there to allow you to join up all the touch points on its journey?
Yeah, it's so for years at Snowplow, we've always been like, this will be the year of real time, and that idea of like building these more operational real time use cases. And the Snowplow technology under the hood has been real time for a very long time. So we ported it from Batch and Elastic MapReduce to Kinesis like in 2015, I think it was, and then added a bunch of other stuff like Kafka and Google Cloud Pub Sub afterwards. So the core engine's been open source for a long, been real time for a long time. The modeling we do today is almost all of that happens inside the data platform. So like a lot of like Databricks SQL or Snowflake SQL or BigQuery SQL, and that's been good, and people have been very happy with that. We've updated our loaders to sort of drip feed those warehouses in a few seconds, which people have liked. But I think the challenge with going full real time is just the tooling. Just it's getting better, and Databricks are investing in it. Confluent, you've got Apache Flink, all that stuff. So the tooling is getting better, but it's a harder problem to reason about all this, processing in real time, and independent vendors don't always make it. I think there was one that just got bought by OpenAI. I think I've forgotten which one that was, but
It was Roxanne.
Yes, yeah, it was Roxette.
Yeah, Roxette. Exactly. Yeah, sorry, but I always go to the song Roxette. Roxette. Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like, I think as we move into kind of convergence of operational analytical, more of these use cases will move into real time. Because to your point earlier, to your examples earlier, we just need to make fast decisioning loops. Cold start problem, someone's just landed on the website. Have we ever seen them before? No. Let's quickly reason about what type of buying intent we think they've got.
So, and real time, obviously, everyone's we want to get to real time, and a lot of that's been a vanity sort of like decisioning or driven, and not actually business requirement driven. I think I've used the example of, it's the longest pole in the tent is gives you the time that you start decisions can't be made until the longest pole in the tent's there. So even if you did all of these things real time, you're still waiting on the cadence of the last bit that's needed to make that decision. So I always back old school, identifying what metric you're trying to solve, and then look at all the components of that, and don't bother just going real time on some of it if you can't go real time on anything, because you're going to pick up the extra cost without any of the extra benefit. And I suppose the other thing is, what is real time? Are we talking sub milliseconds, or are we talking 5-second interval, things like that? So I don't think anyone will give if anyone says they're doing real time, define what that window is, and then let's see if you're within that. But I don't think there's for I suppose for decisioning made for like online purchases and things like that.
As long as it's in session, within a couple of seconds, I think.
It needs to be. But for I suppose, okay, and this is where you're caching. How stale can the data be? You might be able to keep it running real time underneath, but you only need to update the cache at certain points for any decisioning that's happening as part of your customer journey that's on there. So
I think that's true, Chris. I think that what do I think? I think that like we're often really demanding with these things. And it's like, okay, well, we've got to have all the data in real time. It's got to be sub 1 second. It's got to be, et cetera, et cetera. But like, it's a bit like when we're like assessing Waymo self-driving cars, and we're always like assessing them against like the best like Formula One driver out there versus like the average person who's like distracted on their phone texting. And it's like so many digital experiences are so static. And even the pieces that are personalized are really often done in these super like black boxy like third-party vendors that just have so little intelligence about your what's in your platform. So even just, taking a couple of use cases and kind of, cranking them out on top of your data platform, personalization or recommenders or, richer search, whatever it is, I think that can add a lot of value.
Yep. So yeah, Russell's just come up with I'm going to put this one up here. Hey, Russ. We stopped referencing real time aside optimal time, which may be different function. Yeah, I like that.
I like that, Russell.
I use the time. Well, actually, I've been called it myself. JIT. It's just in time tab. I've been told because I'm normally I think my dad named it. Yeah, I think there's a big a real benefit of having just enough just in time. So I think for architecture as well is my spin on that. Is you have just enough architecture just in time. You don't want to have too much architecture and too much time. It's the opposite way around. So yeah, I think that's a good term there, Russell.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I had another thought, but Russell's you taking it out of my mind. Where I was going with the next one.
You've stolen the
yeah. Where are we going? And also, any questions out there? We're happy to ask them. Not that we're running out of things to say, but I've just hit a point. I couldn't remember what the last question was going. Next, let my chain of thought we were going. Data quality. Sorry, this is where I was going. So, how many companies do you see when you go into it which have poor test data or no test data? When starting these projects, and obviously after they start it, how far away from their requirements were they actually when they actually saw the real data?
That is test data and inside Snowplow, like demo data that we can show to people that are thinking about the platform. It's so crucial, and I think as an industry, and by industry I mean modern data teams, a lot of it is very sort of like there's a lot of hacking. There's a lot of like, well, I'll just pull out of I'll just get my sync out of Salesforce going, and then I'll see what's there and I'll hack on it. And there isn't a lot of like first principles thinking about, well, this is like the golden table or record I want to build, and like could I create like a synthetic version of that and create tests all the way through. And I think doing all that is really, really good. Like the biggest test artifacts inside the Snowplow ecosystem are the validation against schema, because like the SDKs live in digital environments which are unreliable narrators. So you don't always get the data through that it claims to be. So we do a lot of like validation on that, and then we flow that through into a bad bucket if it doesn't pass validation, so people can clean it up. And then obviously like test scenarios on the DBT models we build to make sure that with this example event data in, this is the session summary you get out, whatever. So I think as vendors we all need to like build to that. As data teams, like all the data teams are suffering from just a dearth of good test data. Like everyone just goes back to like the New York taxi data set, a couple of the Netflix recommender sets. It's what's your take on it, Chris?
Well, funny you should ask. It's probably one for we'll catch up later, but there's some stuff I'm looking at with someone to try and solve this problem. I think there is a big gap out there of having representative data that can even have quality issues that will make the business start thinking what they really want ahead of. We talk about this reducing the cycles. I think that's the next area of optimization, the data world. And fortunately, the operational world hasn't had this problem because it's easier for some people to go into an operational system individually and enter some data that is representative, and it probably will be because they've got the forms for it. It's validated. They can even kick some processes off and then recycle those ones in batch to go and create real representative data, but from fictitious clients or customers. Well, I don't think that's I haven't seen that sort of level of data that's been given to data teams as part of their requirements or part of their initial initial development process. I think if by having that and having that to translate that to requirements that can be given to developers, translate that to machine readable code that can accelerate any development that's happened off any prototyping. I think there's a gap there. So,
Yeah, definitely. I'm really bullish on the new kind of like agent frameworks and stuff with Gen AI to
yeah,
create much better demo sets or test sets. Like we have an internal project. We haven't made it public yet, but we've got an internal project that creates a lot of like, it's almost like synthetic shoppers to then create like Snowplow event data around like purchase experience or browser experience that we can then use to sort of, test Snowplow and demo Snowplow. And it doesn't use agents yet, it doesn't use LLMs yet, but that would be a very cool next step. Like there are frameworks like Crew AI and stuff where you can
I respect your honesty. Most vendors out there, will say, "Yeah, we got it. Yeah, we're an AI company now. We've got agents. Even if it's just like a square on a, it's a repository with an empty to be added later."
Asterisk.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, you're always an honest man. Oh yeah, Jason's saying agents are fun. So there's one of the things that we put into the and it's a term that we've historical. We've had customer 360, we've had unified customer view.
Yep.
Most of those ones I've seen have normally been not delivered what was promised. Large Salesforce implementations, costing multi-millions. So where do you think? How have we moved on from those lessons, should we say, to not repeat them going forward? And when you say like how much of a real customer view do we need?
Yeah.
To be what's enough? If we go to that just enough analogy.
Yeah, so I think if we stick inside this kind of customer analytics, customer 360 domain, which is domain you do tons of work in, Chris, and it's sort of the lane that the stream that Snowplow swims in. So first things first, I think composable has kind of won. And it's taken a couple of years, and I don't mean that all like enterprise CDP deployments or like C360 deployments are all like completely composed on top of a data platform. There's obviously tons of huge and serious installations on like SFMC and Adobe and things like that. But that idea of like building a C360 inside your own data platform in your own warehouse or lakehouse, and then bringing more and more of your kind of marketing tooling and your campaign tooling to the data in the warehouse. I think that's just really, really happening. And there's very few CDP vendors now that don't have at least a kind of a nod to kind of zero copy and the idea that your C360 might actually be in your warehouse. And data privacy, sensitivity, compliance, sovereignty, all of that stuff is just going up and to the right.
Yeah.
And no one who isn't today putting sensitive financial information into a CDP is going to start.
Yeah.
So by definition, I think composable is winning. And I think the mistake we've got to avoid making is we've got to keep the personas in mind. So you and I, we build for these modern data teams, the technology teams. CTOs have oversight, CIOs as well, CDOs of these data platforms. We've got to respect that there's a bunch of really serious tooling that marketing folk need to orchestrate campaigns, engage with customers, whatever. And like they've got to have vendors that can do that stuff and do that stuff really well. We've just got to recognize that like those vendors have got to play nice with like the C360 in the data platform.
So as you're saying, I was realizing what we're talking about is we're bringing the metadata to the data. So whereas again, supporting this whole gravity thing now is driven by other reasons as well. You don't want to send all that data out to a third party. The associated risks on that as well, and it's another cost. You're paying duplicate storage and keeping it in sync. You're complicating your architecture. And with probably limited or not much benefit over bringing your metadata to that. So do you see that as you think there has been like a blueprint of all of different attributes that are needed, and then each of those attributes there's a mapping to what metrics and KPIs or what then could be fed into algorithms for decisioning, and then if you just map that into where you got those data points over time, Okay, there I go. Now, by bringing in 3 extra attributes, I've now created 4 new algorithms because they were the missing pieces. So that iterative sort of way of building out that metadata layer and, you know, and enabling capabilities once that's plugged in. Is that a feature you're developing now? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
So,
I didn't know that. That wasn't a loaded
well,
question. I was
no,
guessing.
no, no. So basically, I think it comes down a bit to company size as well, and data maturity as well. So we spent a
Yeah.
lot of time at Snowplow saying that like every company was a unique snowflake, pardon the pun, and needed very bespoke like tracking, very bespoke data processing, very bespoke KPIs. And then what you realize is that in a given industry like e-commerce, actually, you know, the digital platforms are super similar, the KPIs are super similar that
Yep.
people are incented on. Everyone's running on Shopify or Magento or similar.
Yep.
And like actually there's a lot of standardization you can do. And so, you know, in specific industries, there's a lot of standardization you can do. But then, of course, you get to like the Global 2000 or whatever, and like those are, you know, they are super bespoke, and that's where like, you know, they've got to use the full power of the platform, and that's where I think they've got to like define all that metadata, all those KPIs, put them in a catalog, put them in a semantic layer, and that just can't. I don't think you can generalize that so much
No.
because you know their businesses are just super unique.
But I suppose what you can do is you can provide a data dictionary or a catalog to
Yes.
say, look, these are the sort of things that we'd expect for you to get in there.
Yeah, and Abby, I think Abby is doing lots of interesting work on like metrics trees and like
Good.
can you standardize this stuff into specific industries. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, I think it's the way. Mind you, we're going to simplify things too much. It's going to be too easy soon, isn't it? They won't need. We'll be taken over by all these platforms, and they'll be generated. Well, these talks will be like computer generated as well. It'll probably be
They'll
clearer
always
to understand what they say, maybe.
there'll always there'll always be tons for us
Oh,
to do.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried. So yeah, Jason's saying that, you know, is that semantic layer? Um, I mean, after Joe's show recently, where they tried to define what a semantic layer is, it has
I
come into the same.
haven't watched that one
Oh
yet.
yeah, it was. I think it was a big long discussion. You know, I think it covers some of the aspects of semantics. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, it is, depending on your definition of it. But it is you're describing that data. I mean, I go back to my days of Cognos, where you had your catalog or business object, you had your universe. That was what a semantic layer was back then. You know, has it evolved? Has it get more maturity? Has you added other things into it? Probably, yeah. But the core fundamentals or the basics, it was a catalog and an ontology of your data, and how it should be used. And yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think whether we call it like metadata, semantic layer, ontologies, knowledge graph. I know I'm not saying they're all the
It's
same
all
thing.
semantics.
Yeah, and it's all metadata that like you know your analysts can use it, your LLMs can use it, everyone can use that stuff, and you know it's funny because Snowplow's almost since year one, Snowplow's we've been very focused on structuring the data and making the data self-describing.
Yeah.
And you know, for a few years, people were like, that's more like heavyweight. Like, you know, could you not have a more like kind of unstructured JSON approach, like a mixed panel or a segment or whatever? No one is saying that now.
No.
With like LLMs, because it's like if you don't know what this data is, if you don't have predictable structures for this data, it's
Yep.
just incredibly hard to like use
Yep.
it in
Yep.
in functional ways.
Yeah, because the good old easy hack of versioning your payload to different versions and changing the JSON structure, just over one day on version 1, now on version 2, without that difference of how you're going to deal with you're screwed basically. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, Jason saying he made significant progress. You need to watch it. I'll put it on my list. So it's a transactional layer from the business to technology, but it must facilitate access to the data itself. Okay, there's the working definition of it. Yes, in that the case, we agree it is semantic layer. Concur, Jason.
Okay.
So what else has been going on? So you're coming to New York soon?
Yeah. So I'm on my I'm on a bit of a tour of the US this summer. Visiting a bunch of cities, visiting customers and prospects and partners, and yeah, just getting a sense of where things are headed. Um, Pretty much across all the axes we talked about, right? So like, how are people making progress moving from pure analytical to like operational as well, getting their flywheels going? How are they getting on getting their new like Gen AI use cases out of
Yep.
lab into live? How are they thinking about the open table formats? Like, is that
Hmm.
something they're evaluating? Is that something they're already all in on? And yeah, just keeping a pulse on the kind of the composability story in
Yep.
Martech, and just catching up with all our kind of friends in the space that have moved their architectures to being way more like warehouse native,
Yep.
which is great for us and our
I thought
customers.
you were
So
just going to see me, but there you go. I realised
there's
you had a
also
lot more.
also
I was the
looking forward to
icing on the
seeing you.
cake, the cherry maybe, I
Nice, yeah,
suppose.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Brits
yeah,
causing trouble in New York.
exactly. Well, I'm looking forward to catching up there. So yeah, I think Matthew Mullins just I'll just put this up here as well
Hey,
for
Matt.
yeah, mate. Yeah, so start baking in semantics early as a process. That means thinking about your event naming and business terms when implementing Snowplow. Totally
Yeah.
bang on. Everything we should do should be using business terms because this is who we do it for.
Every,
Um, uh,
Everything we do should be using business terms, and like
yeah,
being really explicit about our business processes, and knowing that we're observing, emergent customer behaviors, but we're also observing like how those flow through, the processes and the platforms we've built is key.
yeah. So as Donny's about as well. So here we go. So I just put them
Smiley,
on here. So
smiley emoji, Donny. Donny,
yeah, no,
yeah.
right, I got yeah.
Shout
So
out.
yeah, so Donny's he's always good. So while we're out, we'll try and catch up with you as well, Donny. This week.
Yeah.
What is we out Thursday? Is it? I'm giving it all away. Won't tell the whole public where we're meeting. Otherwise, we'll all turn up.
Yeah, so I think so I'm in town Wednesday, Thursday, and
Okay,
yeah, I think we're meeting up on Wednesday. And yeah, Donny,
and
would be great to
Thursday,
see you,
I think.
and definitely. And then I'm off to Austin and then West Coast. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Anyone wants to catch up and talk data, I'll buy you a coffee or a beer.
So what are you doing in Austin? What's this?
Visiting customers. Visiting
Oh,
customers. So
okay.
we've got a good base of customers in Austin. There's a lot of like I mean, it's a great tech scene, but there's just a lot of like kind of big like kind of digital native brands like media and
Yeah.
gaming and stuff there. So which
So
is great for us.
so I did I think for the past two years I've been at or talked at Day to Day Texas. And foolishly,
That's
they've asked me
fun.
to come back again, so I will be there in January.
That's a great event.
But there's a big hub round there of data and tech people. And,
Yeah, that's a super thoughtful event.
yeah,
Lots of like deep thinking on like where this whole thing's going.
yeah, definitely, it's a good crowd there. I think Matthew Mullins has obviously invited you down to have a barbecue tour if you come down south. So there you
Tempting
go.
that.
You get all the offers here. And I think I just got Russell just put something here as well. Data dictionary and business logic should be mandatory tools for any data initiative. I agree as well. And actually, on that one, I just want to why do you think they always fail? Because we all know that this should be the case. I mean, and
Mhm.
I've seen initiatives many times, and no one owns it. No one maintains it. How do we
Yeah,
prevent that?
I so I have an answer on that, which is it's that old pretentious saying like the map is not the territory. So
Mm,
like if your data dictionary is off as this sort of floating metadata thing that people forget to update until after the sprint or whatever, I think it's got to be in that data flywheel. If
yeah,
the data dictionary let's talk about any metadata. If any metadata isn't being used in some sort of operational loop, it's not
yeah,
going to get maintained.
yeah,
And if you think about like very narrow example like Snowplow schemas, if Snowplow event schemas, events and entities weren't used to validate the data, people wouldn't keep them up to date. But like they're used to actively say this is the payload I'm expecting, so of course you
yeah.
keep them up to date. I think that's a problem that a lot of like data catalogs have. Maybe less semantic layers, because
Yeah.
semantic layers are normally being used to like
It's that
report.
ownership and lineage of that to make people actually the people who are actually benefiting from the results from it. They're going to be very interested in making sure it's maintained, because
exactly
their business process is dependent on it. So I think a great question, Russell. I think we need to try and work out how we solve that problem in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And they're coming thick and fast now.
Yeah.
What we got here?
What's happened?
Yeah, I don't know. What's this? What Matthew's saying here? I don't think you can tech team can operate in isolation with the rest of us. Yep.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm not too sure if someone said that. Who said that? But, okay. So it must be the LinkedIn user one here. So how do we avoid? That was what Matthew was answering, I think.
Got it. Got it.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll probably get 15 minutes back in the diary today. I know. You got to rush off and deal with life in Boston. Anyone that wants to reach out to you, or hopefully you told everyone where you are, but how they get in touch? LinkedIn.
Yeah, just connect me on LinkedIn. Drop a message in if you're on a desktop client, and it's just I love talking about all this, and very happy to share more on Snowplow.
And I always, wherever I go and start speaking, I always find out that that Alex is involved somehow. So he's doing loads for the community behind the scenes. It's like the modesty and humbleness. He does all the work he does to charity. He doesn't talk about it though, But no, I mean, kudos to you. I know you speak and help a lot of people, and it's great to see, and inspiring as well.
You do an awful lot.
Oh well, yeah, I try. But anyway, it's always a pleasure, as I say, chatting to you. Looking forward to seeing you this week, and we can follow up on any of these things. Anyone wants to get hold of Alex, you know where to get him. And until then, till next week. I think next week I've got Andrew Cutherers on the show from London Stock Exchange. I think you met him.
Met him at the summit.
So he's going to be talking about his book and Snowflake and optimization and stuff. So it'd be interesting. All right, and Donnie, I'll catch up with you soon as well. See your comments on there. But thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.